Chapter 25 of The Virginian. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Virginian by Owen Wister. Chapter 25. Progress of the Lost Dog. It was not even an hour's visit that the Virginian was able to pay his lady love. But neither had he come 100 miles to see her. The necessities of his wandering work had chanced to bring him close enough for a glimpse of her, and this glimpse he took almost on the wing, for he had to rejoin a company of men at once. "You got my letter?" he said. "Yesterday." "Yesterday? I wrote it 3 weeks ago. Well, you got it. This cannot be the hour with you that I mentioned. That is coming, and may be very soon." She could say nothing. Relief she felt, and yet with it something like a pang. "To-day does not count," he told her, "except that every time I see you counts with me. But this is not the hour that I mentioned." What little else was said between them upon this early morning shall be told duly. For this visit in its own good time did count momentously, though both of them took it lightly while its fleeting minutes passed. He returned to her 2 volumes that she had lent him long ago, and with Taylor he left a horse which he had brought for her to ride. As a good-by he put a bunch of flowers in her hand. Then he was gone, and she watched him going by the thick bushes along the stream. They were pink with wild roses, and the meadow larks, invisible in the grass like hiding choristers, sent up across the empty miles of air their unexpected song. Earth and sky had been propitious, could he have stayed, and perhaps one portion of her heart had been propitious too. So as he rode away on Monte, she watched him, half chilled by reason, half melted by passion, self-thwarted, self-accusing, unresolved. Therefore the days that came for her now were all of them unhappy ones, while for him they were filled with work well done, and with changeless longing. One day it seemed as if a lull was coming, a pause in which he could at last attain that hour with her. He left the camp and turned his face toward Bear Creek. The way led him along Butte Creek. Across the stream lay Balaam's large ranch, and presently on the other bank he saw Balaam himself, and reined in Monte for a moment to watch what Balaam was doing. "That's what I've heard," he muttered to himself. For Balaam had led some horses to the water, and was lashing them heavily because they would not drink. He looked at this spectacle so intently that he did not see Shorty approaching along the trail. "Morning," said Shorty to him, with some constraint. But the Virginian gave him a pleasant greeting. "I was afraid I'd not catch you so quick," said Shorty. "This is for you." He handed his recent foreman a letter of much battered appearance. It was from the Judge. It had not come straight, but very gradually, in the pockets of 3 successive cow punchers. As the Virginian glanced over it and saw that the enclosure it contained was for Balaam, his heart fell. Here were new orders for him, and he could not go to see his sweetheart. "Hello, Shorty!" said Balaam from over the creek. To the Virginian he gave a slight nod. He did not know him, although he knew well enough who he was. "Hyeh's a letter from Judge Henry for yu'," said the Virginian, and he crossed the creek. Many weeks before, in the early spring, Balaam had borrowed 2 horses from the Judge, promising to return them at once. But the Judge, of course, wrote very civilly. He hoped that "this dunning reminder" might be excused. As Balaam read the reminder, he wished that he had sent the horses before. The Judge was a greater man than he in the territory. Balaam could not but excuse the dunning reminder, but he was ready to be disagreeable to somebody at once. "Well," he said, musing aloud in his annoyance, "Judge Henry wants them by the 30th. Well, this is the 24th, and time enough yet." "This is the 27th," said the Virginian briefly. That made a difference. Not so easy to reach Sunk Creek in good order by the 30th. Balaam had drifted 3 sunrises behind the progress of the month. Days look alike, and often lose their very names in the quiet depths of cattle land. The horses were not even here at the ranch. Balaam was ready to be very disagreeable now. Suddenly he perceived the date of the judge's letter. He held it out to the Virginian, and struck the paper. "What's your idea in bringing this here 2 weeks late?" he said. Now, when he had struck that paper, Shorty looked at the Virginian. But nothing happened beyond a certain change of light in the Southerner's eyes. And when the Southerner spoke, it was with his usual gentleness and civility. He explained that the letter had been put in his hands just now by Shorty. "Oh," said Balaam. He looked at Shorty. How had he come to be a messenger? "You working for the Sunk Creek outfit again?" said he. "No," said Shorty. Balaam turned to the Virginian again. "How do you expect me to get those horses to Sunk Creek by the 30th?" The Virginian leveled a lazy eye on Balaam. "I ain't doing any expecting," said he. His native dialect was on top today. "The judge has friends going to arrive from New York for a trip across the basin," he added. "The hosses are for them." Balaam grunted with displeasure, and thought of the 60 or 70 days since he had told the judge he would return the horses at once. He looked across at Shorty, seated in the shade, and through his uneasy thoughts his instinct irrelevantly noted what a good pony the youth rode. It was the same animal he had seen once or twice before. But something must be done. The judge's horses were far out on the big range, and must be found and driven in, which would take certainly the rest of this day, possibly part of the next. Balaam called to one of his men and gave some sharp orders, emphasizing details and enjoining haste, while the Virginian leaned slightly against his horse, with one arm over the saddle, hearing and understanding, but not smiling outwardly. The man departed to saddle up for his search on the big range, and Balaam resumed the unhitching of his team. "So you're not working for the Sunk Creek outfit now?" he inquired of Shorty. He ignored the Virginian. "Working for the Goose Egg?" "No," said Shorty. "Sand Hill outfit, then?" "No," said Shorty. Balaam grinned. He noticed how Shorty's yellow hair stuck through a hole in his hat, and how old and battered were Shorty's overalls. Shorty had been glad to take a little accidental pay for becoming the bearer of the letter which he had delivered to the Virginian. But even that sum was no longer in his possession. He had passed through Drybone on his way, and at Drybone there had been a game of poker. Shorty's money was now in the pocket of Trampas, but he had one valuable possession in the world left to him, and that was his horse Pedro. "Good pony of yours," said Balaam to him now, from across Butte Creek. Then he struck his own horse in the jaw because he held back from coming to the water as the other had done. "Your trace ain't unhitched," commented the Virginian, pointing. Balaam loosed the strap he had forgotten, and cut the horse again for consistency's sake. The animal, bewildered, now came down to the water, with its head in the air, and snuffing as it took short, nervous steps. The Virginian looked on at this, silent and somber. He could scarcely interfere between another man and his own beast. Neither he nor Balaam was among those who say their prayers, yet in this omission they were not equal. A half-great poet once had a wholly great day, and in that great day he was able to write a poem that has lived and become, with many, a household word. He called it "The Rime of the Ancient Mariner," and it is rich with many lines that possess the memory, but these are the golden ones. He prayeth well who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best who loveth best, all things both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. These lines are the pure gold. They are good to teach children, because after the children come to be men, they may believe at least some part of them still. The Virginian did not know them, But his heart had taught him many things.